Thank you all so much for attending today. Sorry, it's been a while since the last webinar. We've been busy helping our partners roll out amazing tutoring across the United States. If you missed the live broadcast of our last webinar or haven't seen the recording, David Parker and Peter Nelson are amazing researchers from Sept, Minnesota, and just awesome human beings. I really highly recommend it. tutorwithpearl.com/webinars. We had a great conversation about bridging the research to practice gap. I learned a ton from the last webinar. It was really an incredible experience. So I really highly recommend that if you didn't get to check it out, please do tutorwithpearl.com/webinars. At Pearl, we believe that high impact tutoring is the clear evidence-based winner on how to best address the many challenges our students are facing related to learning loss. But as we think about the hurdles to do the right thing by our students, supplying the country with effective tutoring is critical. And that being said, not all districts and states, for that matter, have the resources to leverage the high impact model and have turned to other models like on-demand homework help as an approach to mitigate the learning loss caused by COVID. But as I've said in many other webinars, not just COVID, but also generational inequities in education. In many cases, on-demand academic support is being used as a supplement to more traditional tutoring or high-impact tutoring. Now, I want to be really clear. Today, I'm going to talk a lot about what's broken in this model of on-demand homework help. So I'm focusing in on the opportunities for improvement. And I want you to know as the audience that there are some on-demand homework help programs that have been pretty effective. And there are some students that have gotten a lot out of those programs. And in addition, there are so many opportunities to leverage the model, particularly as an academic support that can cover a lot more students. And so we're not so much interested in saying this is the wrong way to go, as much as we're saying, hey, there's some things that are broken about it that we believe could be fixed. And we could look at other more successful models to inform how those things could improve. So I will talk a lot about what's broken, but just know that there's a positive bent to where I'm headed. So let's start with the simple but a bit nuanced question about what is on-demand homework help and what is its history. Fundamentally, on-demand homework help or as-needed academic assistance allows for a student to work with a tutor as needed, often in a quick session, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sometimes shorter, to address something they're struggling to understand, usually pertaining to preparing for a test or try to complete homework. It's often due the next day. This model does not usually necessitate a curriculum or LMS, learning management system, although it may leverage tools that align with specific approaches. In the early days of the model, before most folks were online, this might mean staying after school to meet with your teacher. So when I was a kid, before computers, we had study hall. So if you were struggling with something, you could go to study hall and a couple of the teachers would stay after school and you could get some help from them if you needed. There are still great programs around the country that are in person doing this sort of ad hoc kind of support. Like in the library system in Queens, New York, the kids can pop into a branch after school and be an ad hoc again, paired with a tutor for some extra help. Now, as technology progressed, we went from in-person to some phone support to now the most prevalent version, which is the one you're probably most familiar with, which is online via chat and whiteboards. There are also many open source asynchronous models for learning as well, but I'm really focused today on the person-to-person tutoring on-demand model. As you can imagine, this approach is not great for younger kids, especially those that have not learned to read or type for that matter. So the majority of on-demand homework help is focused on 6th grade and up, ostensibly middle school and high school. I will say, like my son, who's pretty profoundly dyslexic, even as a 6th grader, he would struggle a bit with trying to do that chat and look at the whiteboard and go back and forth. So he would still, in his case, be better off in a world where he could interact video to video with a tutor, even if it was in the on-demand support model. So let's talk a little bit about who uses on-demand homework help. First, let's start with who buys it. In the current era, the on-demand approach is a turnkey model that appeals to districts and states, and it definitely appealed at the beginning of the ESSER funding cycles. The appeal focused on the quick, hands-off solution that was broad enough to act as support for a large number of students, and in many cases was an unlimited sort of all-you-can-eat 24/7 model. The approach allowed states and districts to move money off the books and not lose ESSER dollars before the critical funding cliffs. The other problem, particularly in the beginning of the pandemic, was lack of tutors. Teachers were already exhausted, and the high demand for workers made it such that districts and states struggled to pay competitive wages for tutoring. This is still a problem. I did a webinar with Deans for Impact a couple of months ago, where we dive deep on this problem of the teacher shortage. And I can tell you that it continues today, especially as they got into the beginning of the school year. Many principals were not even thinking about tutoring because they were so busy just trying to fill vacant positions within their schools. So vendors with an army of tutors were able to set up offerings that allowed students to access tutors on demand via chat-based support. This allowed the tutoring companies to monitor demand and allowed for resources to ebb and flow. It also allowed those vendors to sell concurrent support across one resource. So much like a call center, one tutor support person might be able to handle multiple students in chat. Most on-demand models tout diversity, and they'll demonstrate that they have diversity on their tutor team, but still often leveraged an anonymous style support via chat with whiteboards. So functionality built into the design allowed for evaluating students' work with suggestions for improvement returned to the students. And that worked pretty well because that's normally why students are coming for on-demand homework help, but there was no sense as to who helped them. And so that relationship was a bit taken out of the context. So now that we've talked about who buys homework help, let's think about who uses the service. There is definitely a shift happening in this space to fix some of the issues with consistency. But the bottom line is that older students can Google to look up for an answer to a problem, or YouTube search to find a way to solve a problem for themselves where there are specific steps, like in math. There have been studies that show on-demand support becomes more about do this for me, or I have done this work. Can you verify that I'm correct? And the students that use it are usually the ones that have a proactive attitude and or a parent or teacher that is driving them to use the service. Needless to say, online tutoring in general that takes place at home is problematic for students with antiquated devices or slow or no internet. So that problem continues until the infrastructure is improved. So in that world of talking about improvement, let's get into where some opportunities are for improvement in the on-demand homework help model as we've seen it in the past school year. The biggest issue is usage. Again, I know I've said this already, but I want to drive it home. There are just little incentives for students to use this service. And illustratively, like in Palm Beach, Florida, for instance, after buying over $1 million worth of on-demand homework help, the board started reporting these huge disparities in usage. There was one case last year where a district had only used 10% of the on-demand support it had paid for at the end of the first semester. The other big issue is that on-demand homework help is opt-in and usually left to the student to decide if they want to use it. So if you look at research, there's a paper that we'll reference, Bergman et al. 2020. It was made very clear that having to opt out of tutoring drives uptake and performs much better than an opt-in model. Also, per the Annenberg Institute's Tutor Quality Improvement System, TQIS, Research informs that if a tutoring program has a defined approach to enroll and retain students, and particular attention is paid to reducing barriers, participation is higher. The other question was no seamless way to run on demand alongside high impact tutoring. And this was a big one for us. Most on-demand solutions focus solely on that model and do not deliver an all-in model for regularly scheduled tutoring with the option of on-demand support. So combining the experience allows for a student receiving, as an example, literacy support in the high impact tutoring model to be able to also log in and receive a quick on-demand video session with a tutor for early math. And I'm actually going to show you that in our demonstration. This is one that I personally have thought about a lot, right? If opt-in is one of the problems, those folks who are put into tier 2 intervention and are receiving their high impact tutoring sessions or traditional tutoring sessions in an online environment, why not also expose them to that other layer of academic support if it's possible? Because they may not be struggling in just that one subject for which they're receiving intervention. They may also be struggling in other subjects as well. Also, I think, the companies, the vendors' incentives for driving student uptake was low in this use it or lose it pricing model. If you're hiring a company to do homework help, they're often more incentivized by wait times than uptake, and especially when it falls to the district to market to students and parents. I also heard recently of a study that looked at what it meant to market to just the student and or just the parent, and third, both the parent and the student. And as you can imagine, the student was basically zero if you market to just the student. If you market to the student and the parent, there was a small increase, but a significant increase in uptake. But if you marketed to both the student and the parent, it created, I think, a dialogue that allowed for what I remember as a 50% jump in the amount of uptake of the model. Now, the last thing is this one, well, not last thing, but chat only is another thing that I'm thinking about as well. The chat only tool takes out the opportunity for key components to teaching, like listening skills and visual facial cues. Again, the chat model also limits the overall connection between the tutor and the student, which drives down the opportunity to build a trusted academic relationship. It also obviously is hard to support a non-writer, as I've talked about, in a chat tool. And in those cases, you would need a literate, proactive parent to do the communicating in the chat. Next, the whiteboard tools regularly limited the variety of ways a tutor could support a student. The whiteboard tools that I examined in the on-demand world seem to work pretty well for math, particularly higher math. And I know we're talking primarily about middle school and high school, but still, with early literacy as being such a need and reading being such a need, there was a real gap in tools that really focused on that piece of things. The tutor support staff, again, for these programs were also anonymous, and this limited the ability to build an academic relationship. The National Student Support Accelerator's TQIS shows emerging evidence, and I'll quote, "There is not one perspective on the value for importance of the student-tutor relationship. The importance of the relationship depends on a program's mission, mode of delivery, tutor consistency, and other factors. Nevertheless, it is suggested that tutors who are able to foster positive and professional relationship with students may lead to greater gains." And I really think it is about that connection of working with someone consistently and being able to see that person smile, to interact, to be able to have that kind of connection, that kind of affinity that oftentimes leads to that curiosity of learning that's so important. And the thing that we wonder about in this reinvention is, can we do that in the on-demand model in the same way we've been able to replicate and prove as effective in the high-impact tutoring model? And lastly, as we sort of talk about opportunities, the school teachers and the schools in general had little to no insight and communication into how the system was supporting their classroom students. With the high-impact tutoring model, there's often an open conversation happening between the tutors and the school teachers. particularly because a lot of the districts have mandated that those high impact tutoring sessions happen in person. And one of the many ways proven to improve the usage of on-demand academic support is literally having the school teacher assign on-demand support as homework. So, really getting parents and school teachers to opt into the idea that on-demand homework help is something their students should be using, and leveraging them as the marketing tool to get their son or daughter and or their student to use the service is a critical part of how we're going to drive better uptake. So where do we go from here? When we discussed these many issues with the Annenberg team at Brown, they pointed specifically to supportive research or emerging research in the TQIS model for high impact tutoring to inform improvements on the on-demand model. So based on their research and all of the research that's emerging and has been done under the National Student Support Accelerator, and looking at the key problem areas and going through discovery with our partners, we reimagined on-demand academic support and are launching with the following key innovations. So our new tool, and again, we have to release something based on, here are the things we believe are broken. We're going to have our best effort at fixing those things based on the research. And then over time, we're going to make improvements as we learn about how people interact with those tools. But the new model incentivizes students to participate in the program through nudging, and we're going to be doing some nudging studies, the student and the parent and the school teacher through text, email reminders, and in-app messages. And we know we don't want to be too spammy, so we have to figure out how to gauge this and how to do it in a meaningful way that is compelling. And we also have to just really empower that school buy-in and the school teacher buy-in. And we do that via our teacher portal. It has to live alongside the technical infrastructure for high impact tutoring. So our model combines high impact tutoring with on-demand tutoring, so that a student who's receiving regular tutoring as part of a tier 2 intervention can actually also get access to that other layer of support for other subjects. It also allows for both on-demand chat, and this is really important, not just on-demand chat, but on-demand video support. So if a tutor is available right now to meet with you in a video environment, let's make that connection between those two people. And we also have fully integrated 2 classrooms experiences. One is a simpler tool, much more for early literacy, early math. It's got simple buttons. It's laid out very cleanly. And we think it's going to work really well for the younger students. And we also have another tool that we're leveraging, another classroom experience that's fully integrated that has more of those sort of complex math tools, graphing calculators, the kinds of things that you would expect and need as part of teaching math and higher math. The platform, most importantly, and this is probably where I'm most excited, is built to build relationships instead of kind of keep those connections anonymous, allowing students to be matched with the next available tutor, of course, but also easily connect with a tutor that has been helpful for them in the past. So we actually have some logic on the back end of our system that looks at the post-session reporting for each of those sessions. It looks at the interactions. It looks at how often you choose specific tutor. And then we want to surface those tutors to you regularly as a student so that you can build relationships over time. And allowing students to see the schedules of trusted tutors and book dedicated time with those tutors. Lastly, we want to build that communication bridge between the school teachers and the on-demand tutors, again, via the school teacher portal. All right, now I believe we're going to switch over to a demonstration. So I'm going to give our tech team a second to kind of get that set up and pass me some controls. All right. So the first thing that's going to happen is that the student is going to log into the system. Now, again, what's really exciting and cool is if I am a student who's receiving high impact tutoring, so say I'm receiving the quintessential 3 days a week, 45 minutes, dedicated instructor, and I'm doing that in a virtual experience. When I log in, all I have to do is click the join button and I'm taken directly into the waiting room. Now we've got this great new technical tech checklist. And if I'm struggling with something, my tutor actually has access to assist me. So for instance, if I have the wrong microphone, once I get in there, I can give access to my instructor so that they can make the change to the right microphone for me. So really helping those younger students. Now, once we're in the classroom, this is our simple classroom experience. It's got multiple whiteboards, a text edit board, a blank whiteboard. The tutor can access tools, or if I've got tools or things that I've uploaded, say I uploaded a file, a math worksheet that I'm struggling with, I'd be able to drag and drop that right onto the whiteboard so that my instructor can see it. And then both of us can simultaneously interact and we can annotate directly on that sheet. And so it's really creating that awesome connection. Obviously there's screen share and all that other stuff. And again, I'm not showing you our a little more intensive math focused classroom experience, but that one too has all of the core tools that folks are regularly used to. But it also just has those more advanced math tools. Again, this is the sort of idea of a high impact tutoring model. But this is the exact same experience you would have for a 10-minute ad hoc on-demand support experience as well. As soon as I've ended the session, as a student, I'm going to give a little bit of feedback. And again, this is for my high impact tutoring session, but this exact same survey or a different kind of survey can be served up for the on-demand support side. And once that's served up, that gives some data in the back end for program administrators to understand how things are going. It also gives some post-session record information to that tutor. So if that tutor supports that student again, they've got access to that information. All right, so I just had my high impact tutoring 47-minute session or 30-minute session with my regular scheduled tutor. But you know what? That was for some, say that was for some reading help, right? Or some literacy help. But now I've got a math homework worksheet that's due tomorrow, and I really need help on that. So I can see that there are live tutors that are available right now to support me in these different subjects. So there are 3 instructors that are available in math. I'm actually going to go to general math, and then I'm going to go right into the waiting room. It looks like there's a 7-minute wait. So I'll have 7 minutes, and in 7 minutes, this is not me chatting with an instructor. This is actually me interacting with an instructor in a video, a support environment, just like the classroom experience I just showed you. So this is video on demand help as needed as a supplement to, in this illustration, my high impact tutoring experience. But you can imagine that not everybody has the time. Maybe they don't want to wait 7 minutes. Maybe they just needed a quick answer to a question. They could go over to their instructors here. It's going to serve up instructors first and foremost that have been most helpful to you in the past. And so you can see that this button is green. So Alice, who's helped me in the past, is available to help me with math. So I can go over here and I can chat with Alice. Maybe I can get my answer. I can drag and drop files. So it's very much kind of like a chat kind of experience where you can drop files and you can have discussions. But ultimately, what we want to lead folks to do is join a video session. So if that problem can't be solved here in chat, the instructor can kick up a video session and the 2 of you can enter into that video session really quick to have a face-to-face conversation and solve any issues that you couldn't solve before. But say you got a math test, it's on Monday, you just really need a little bit of help maybe by Friday that can really just help you understand a few things that are important to you. You can go to the schedule ahead. We've built out the technology in the back end to look at Jaden's schedule, to know that Jaden has got an open on-demand session that he's running on Friday. He's available to book a little bit of time with. And this is an illustration, but normally maybe it would be 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I would actually request some time as a student with that particular instructor. And this is on-demand homework help. This is me saying, hey, I got a test on Monday and I'd really like to book a little bit of time with this person that I trust on Friday, right? So I schedule that session. So really, really powerful tools. And the other piece of this that's really cool is that a teacher at the school can have oversight over a number of students within their portal, where if they've, in the case that I've brought up earlier, they assigned on-demand homework help as part of homework, they would actually be able to see that they interacted with certain instructors, and they would be able to see the post-session records for those short interactions. So they would be able to validate that their students are actually using it. It also gives those teachers in the school the ability to chat in the system in real time and communicating with the instructors that are helping on the on-demand side. So it really bridges that gap between the schools and the on-demand tutors, but also bridges that gap between the on-demand tutors and the high-impact tutors as well. So we're just real excited about combining the model. But that being said, we have examples where some of our vendors or partners are just using this for on-demand homework help, or they're just using this for high-impact tutoring. And we're going to be doing quite a bit of different types of research. We're doing some exciting research on improving the speed of rostering. We're going to be doing some uptake research to see what kinds of things help improve uptake initially and registration of on-demand homework help, but also how do we get a student to regularly use the service. There are other things that we're going to be doing on the back end to study relationships, because optimally we would love to see our students start to use a tutor as an on-demand tutor and eventually create a more long-form academic relationship, which we think is going to be really, really awesome. So that's the end of the demo. Of course, if you are interested in seeing more from our platform, we would love for folks to connect with us, and I can take you much deeper. Obviously, that was just the tip of the iceberg. Now we're in the questions section of our webinar here. So I'm going to just answer a couple of quick questions because I know we're close to being out of time. First question comes from our registration process. Do we have any recommendations for the tutor to student ratio for effective homework help programs? For example, our company employs 10 full-time tutors and we work with over 200 students. So this is a tough question. I've been asked this question quite a bit, and the bottom line is it depends on the uptake, and you've got to sort of build out the resources and understand the surge that happens. So if tutoring is happening after school, you have to understand when those high usage times are going to be, and you need to staff up for those time periods. You also need to understand within our platform, you can set video support and chat support. It may be better to have some tutors just doing chat support because they can do concurrent. So you can leverage those resources in a different way than the folks that are going to be available for video. So Melissa from the chat asked a really great question. What are the most critical data points to capture from sessions to prove efficacy of homework help? I think the most critical one is, and this is a nuanced one, was the problem solved? So did the student get what they needed when they came from that particular instructor? We don't want to get into a model where they're bashing folks back and forth if they just didn't answer their questions, but we want to be able to be good about making sure we understand whether the student was helped. Also, we're collecting social emotional learning as part of those post sessions and the video support. So I think, did you feel connected to the instructor? Did you make a connection with the instructor that really helped you be engaged in what was learned? And then would you be interested in receiving help from that tutor again? Obviously, there's a lot more data you can collect as part of a more long form tutoring program, but those are the critical pieces as part of on-demand homework help. Okay, so the next question from the chat, what on-demand tools did you research? I'm going to kind of stay away from that one because I don't want to just bash on-demand homework help companies, because I don't think they're doing bad work. I just think that they looked at what they knew before they got into on-demand homework help, and they set the model up based on that. And it just proved out over the year that there were a lot of opportunities for improvement. I'm going to answer one more question because I know we're close to being over time here. Let's see. What are some, here's a great one. What are some red flags to watch out for in regards to a tutor-student relationship not working out? And well, in on-demand, that's a particularly tough one. I would look at definitely bounce rates. We give our instructors the ability to report behavior issues. So, if there are behavior issues on that side, that's some red flags that there's a relationship issue, or, this could be a behavior issue on the student side, but normally if you've got a good instructor, they can control a lot of those behaviors. So it's looking at those problem areas. And obviously it's nuanced, but students not receiving what they need, right? Optimally, you want to help be a shepherd to the right answer rather than just giving them the right answer. So that some students struggle with that. So figuring out a balance for that as well can be really helpful. All right. So I think that is time. It's really interesting. We normally do a full hour, so it's kind of tough for me to just do 30 minutes, but that's what we've got today. I really appreciate everybody so much for attending. Sorry, I thought we blanked out there for a second. I really appreciate everybody for attending. We will make show notes and that sort of thing available to everyone. That's going to include some links to some of the research that I referenced today. We're also going to be making available some additional screenshots and that sort of thing. And of course, the video will be available. And as always, if you have any questions or you're looking for a partner in state, district, federally funded programs, definitely contact us. I think Mike is going to drop a link in the chat for you. I'm happy to chat with any of you at any time, again, and also to take you much deeper into the platform and what we're thinking and how we're researching on demand. So thank you so very much. I really appreciate all of you and hope to see you on the next webinar. Take care.